Greetings, mortals, and welcome back.
It has been quite a while since I have streamed. It's been so long, in fact, I do not actually have my green screen set up. I do apologize for that, but I've been busy with other projects that I will hopefully be releasing at some point in the near future. And let's see here, we're going to put this here for now, I guess. So today we are going to be doing just the math-heavy stream. I'm working on a project that I started a little bit ago, and namely what I'm looking for is... Do I have noise coming into this? Yes, I do. Sorry, just started raining, so it's pretty loud here. So, one of the things that I've been curious about is the idea of I've been looking around at in my most recent Byzantium run. I realized that it's very important to sort of maximize your administrative utility when you're taking territory in this game early. It's very important what territories you take and how they behave. How useful they are. And I feel like basically no matter who you are in an area, it shouldn't be too difficult to get yourself to the point where you have reached your administrative expansion limit. So, what is it, Burgundy as a rival? Burgundy is still a little scary. So what I'm going to be looking for here, and it's kind of silly to do this in Europe right this second because they're going to be changing a lot of Europe later. But there's a couple of key things. If you're in Europe, you want to take control completely of one of these end nodes, right? So that's simply going to be important for you. So as an example, if you are in Southern Europe, you have the option of either going with Venice or just Genoa or Venice as endpoints that are very powerful that allow you to just sort of accumulate wealth into yourself, and you want to sort of just take control over all of the nodes that are, all of the centers of trade and things like that in those nodes. If you're in Central Europe, you have a few different options. But I think that if you're in Central Europe, you're probably better off trying to get toward the English Channel and trying to take control of England. I guess the problem with that is that if you take control of the English Channel, you're wiping out England. And if you wipe out England, nobody's pushing stuff to the English Channel anymore. Everybody's sending it through Sevilla. So, is it Sevilla or Sevilla? I should probably look that up because we're going to be concerned with Sevilla. I think it's Sevilla, but interesting. It's apparently Sevilla. Is it really a B-ish?
PronounceNames.com.
That's not what I want. All I'm looking for... I'm looking for the dictionary. Where's the dictionary? What is it? I mean, according to this list of things, it says it's Sevilla. And apparently Seville is the way that the English pronounce it, and it's the only correct way to pronounce it in English, which is it's it's a Spanish name. You don't get to just rename it. Alright, so Sevilla is it's probably not a hard B. It probably does not sound anything like that, but we'll go with it because it sounds like I'm at least trying. So anyway, so one of the things that I need to look at is, let's take a look at areas. You have a limited number of sort of administrative stuff that you can have in the beginning. So you can have a total number, it looks like, starting from day one, you have a total of 30 territories at peace. And if you get... What point do you get more states? So you get +6 at 8 admin. Okay, you get +10 from admin ideas full. So now, the reason that I'm saying +10 and +6 is because this is the total number of territories that I'm talking about, and the total number of territories you can have without getting any corruption is equal to the number of states that you have. I think that getting like any degree of corruption is probably, unhealthy for you early on in the game, so I don't think that it's really worth it to get that. So let's work with this so far. We have a total of 30 territories that we can take control of. So how many areas are there in the English Channel that actually contain at least one center of trade? Because as an example, this area up here, it does have a estuary, but it doesn't have any centers of trade, so it can probably be ignored. So it looks like I can actually see the areas that I'm looking for. Oops. Why, when I tab out, is it minimizing the game completely? I don't want it to minimize the game completely. I'm just looking to... It's a totally different monitor. You don't need to minimize. Alright, so it looks like we have 1, 2, 3... 4. What? Okay, so this is an area. So this is an area. It looks different because it's controlled by someone else. So let's see. There's probably a lot of that, isn't there? So 1. This is actually one area. So 2, 3, 4, and then up here we have 1. Each one of these is in a different thing, or it looks like, yeah. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like we only have. Province is only 8. It's 4. Now, bear in mind that just controlling the centers of trade is not sufficient for our purposes. We do want to control everything, but that gives an idea of how much territory you need to get in order to have a pretty solid control over the territory that you're looking at. So this should be really dense, I would think. Yeah, this is like, because it's only these. It's like 4, 5. It's only 5 areas to take complete control of this stuff. So Venice is a very strong node. If you can take control of Venice itself, and that's the key, is like beating Venice. Once you've beaten Venice, there's not really a lot of other major players here. So it's basically just a matter of taking Venice before Austria does, or playing as Austria and utilizing the Venice trade node. That's probably part of the reason that Austria is so strong, is because it's right next to Venice, and if you can just take out Venice, then, I mean, Austria also has like really great personal unions and things like that, but taking control of a relatively small amount of territory gives you a huge boon as Austria. Okay, so back to looking at all this kind of stuff. So if we want to take complete control of this area, we have 1, 2. Do we have to go that far down? No, we don't. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so there's 6 areas in continental Europe. And there are, how many areas are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 areas. Okay, so that means that there's 13 total areas for complete control of. What is this place called? So if you're going to be a colonizer, taking control of the English Channel here probably makes a lot of sense. You can go this way as a colonizer, but honestly, I think as a colonizer, you're better off trying to take out England than you are trying to like do something else. If you can get into a war with England and get you get a foothold in the English Isles here somewhere, even if you manage to just get some way of fighting Scotland, like you're attacking France or something, and you get control of a little bit of Scotland, whatever the reason is, or if like you're like Norse and you just start conquering this way, those are probably better for you than trying to go through the south. Because if you look at the south, you have to get control of Sevilla in order to get to where you're going, right? You need to get control of that. And I think I kind of have an idea of where that pronunciation probably is now. I don't think I'm going to do it correctly, but I think that I have an idea of how you would do it correctly. Anyway, so if you take control of this, because it's on an end node, you then have to take all the control. You basically have to control half of the Mediterranean to be able to actually get any benefit out of it. And that is a huge number. Like, just the Sevilla node itself is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, there's like 12 just in this node. And then you have all of this territory and all the... Actually, that's not true. These ones are not. So it's about 10, 11 areas that you need to control this. But that's such a huge number of areas for your early game allotment. So in the past... Oh, man, I can only imagine how bad it's going to get trying to get the corruption dealt with. Is it actually a problem? 30 territories, so as long as your territories have at least 3 1/3 average, you should be fine to have... Yeah, you're fine. You have to be a little bit more efficient with France than you used to have to be, but it's fine. Let's see. I was thinking about the big blue blob. and getting 100 territories, but it's not a problem. The corruption thing doesn't come into play until later than that. So it looks like taking control, again, if you're going to be colonizing, I think it makes a lot of sense to take control of the English Channel. And to a degree, it makes sense to take control of the North Sea as well, because they're going to be pushing stuff over here to... Nope, this isn't an endpoint. This just pulls straight into the English Channel. So as long as you have enough control over the English Channel, I think you're always best off getting there. So as an example, let's say that you're one of the Norse countries, like you're Denmark. Your endpoint is going to be right here, except it's not an endpoint. So in addition to taking control, once you take full control of this, you still have places like England. England is, what, the third most powerful entity here? They have 40 trade power, just from caravan power. So, like, that's insanity. That's not something that's going to be... can't be caravan power. They don't have caravan. This is transfers from traders to downstream. Sorry, I saw the caravan here and got confused. But yeah, this is basically just their control over the English Channel is giving them half as much power here as Denmark has. So, and that's just one, entity. The other ones are not nearly as relevant in that context, but it's fine. So yeah, I think that if you're a colonizer, you need to take... English Channel. Oh yeah, Denmark is like pretty scary actually. Bear in mind, Denmark controls Norway and Sweden at the start date. So right now, most of Scandinavia. Is any of this stuff part of Scandinavia? Because this is Finland. Not Sweden today. But anyway, so Denmark right now is a pretty sizable world power. They're pretty significant. The thing that they have working against them is, in game, is that they're basically only bordering in terms of their own territory where they can start fabricating claims and stuff like that. They're only bordering the Holy Roman Empire. So, but if Denmark is able to get a foothold over in Scotland, they could easily just sort of plow through England over here. Well, not necessarily easily. England has a ridiculous navy. But they don't need it if they get a foothold in Scotland, right? They don't need to beat England's navy. They just need to beat their army, which is, generally speaking, much easier. So the biggest problem with fighting England, generally, is in order to fight England, you need to be able to get a foothold over here. And it's hard to get a foothold over here because you have to fight England to get it, or you need to declare a no casus belli war. I mean, you can just declare a no casus belli war over here, but that's really gamey. Like, it's a really, to me, not really worth it from my perspective as a filthy RPer. And from other perspectives, it's very expensive. But probably would be worth it, honestly. If you're not looking at it from an RP perspective, I think that it's probably worth it to take the stability hit early in the game to just conquer Munster. Oh yeah, I conquered England just recently. Actually, I started as awfully, and I was doing the Spanish Fly run. I didn't actually finish the run, but I do think I fully conquered England. But yeah, my first playthroughs were starting as an Irish miner and sort of just taking over the British Isles. That was my first full run of the game. Was doing that. But yeah, okay, so what does that mean for us? I feel like if we are over here, we want to take that. Oh, nice. Speedruns are really cool. 8 minutes. That's really impressive. I'm actually curious if you wanted to take control of all of the endpoints. I think all the endpoints in the world are right here, right? Like this and this and this. So if you take control of these 3 nodes completely, how much would that take? Let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. You only need 6? 6 total for awareness. And this Genoa is huge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. There's only 10. So if you take control of all of those completely, like let's take a look at the Sevilla node. This node here, how much of this is controlled by Castile? Castile only controls what percent? So it looks like currently 81% is retained, but part of that is going to be from boats. How much of your stuff is from boats? Oh no, they don't have any light ships yet. So this is just the retained power. So it looks like that's actually pretty impressive. So Castile has 40%. Interesting. So Portugal has 27%, and so this is 31. So they have 71%. So just control. So you get about 30% control over Sevilla just from controlling Genoa. Now, obviously, they have the ability to put ships here, but so do you. So this goes to where? Champagne. Is that an SNL skit? I'm trying to remember where I've heard that pronunciation. I think it's from SNL skit from a million. Yes. Oh, it was what's his name? Oh, God, I can't remember his name. He has such a distinctive voice. The guy from the More Cowbell sketch. Let's see. Christopher Walken. Let's see. So it looks to me like, hypothetically speaking, if you wanted to, as a colonizer, there's a couple of key things that you could try to do. So one important thing to do is to take control of the English Channel. I think the English Channel is probably the best endpoint for a colonizer because it is relatively self-sufficient. The North Sea zone doesn't have a whole lot in it. So, like, Norway has 14% control over this. But if you take control of all of the British Isles, you're going to have a controlling share here. And if you take control of that plus all of the English Channel trade, it's going to be really crazy really fast. So I feel like Denmark doesn't have a huge amount of ability to really take a lot of control of the North Sea. And you can deal with Denmark eventually to get this going your way if you want. It's kind of useful, I guess, to take out Denmark if you want as England. So, like, if you were going to do an England run, I've never actually played as England. It might be fun to try an England run at some point. But if you were playing as England and you could go in on Castile early and take control over just a little bit of Castilian territory, you could start weakening Castile early on before they get into a big place, because you start out with control over this province. You can just claim in Castile, and you can basically get the ability to release the Asturias. And if you release the Asturias, you can basically just start conquering territory for them off of Castile. It looks like it's just going to be a few northern provinces. You could even, if you wanted, actually go in on Navarra instead, but that seems a little silly. You could actually vassalize Navarra, probably. If you were able to vassalize Navarra before you lose control of this stuff, assuming you lose control over it. See, this is the thing with England, is that England actually has a really strong opening now, because I think that as England you have the ability to get a personal union over France using some of the events that happen here. I'm actually just going to play this forward a bit just to see what the events are. Because there should be a military strategy that's going to consistently work against France in the opening war. And if you can get that going... Is it in perpetual beta? It's not in perpetual beta, it's in perpetual, like... they're continuously adding more content. So since they're continuously adding more content, things just keep changing, right? Let's see. Papal state excommunicated us. That's not nice. The sheer scope of this game now compared to when it first came out is kind of mind-boggling. I'm just waiting for this event to fire. I guess I should have just put it to 5. I want to see what options you're given as France. Assuming you're given an option. I'm pretty sure that this takes... There we go. So in exchange for accepting the treaty of blah, 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 the Maine was promised to France. In practice, this has taken quite some time to materialize. The arrival of Charles VII seems to have made the holdup go away, and finally Maine is now in our hands. Okay, so it looks like if you wanted to, as England, you can basically just give them this, in which case it ends the 100 Years' War. So as England, you have the available option to prevent uh, France from going to war with you immediately. That being the case, though, you have as France, you still have the ability to reclaim all these cores. All right, so that's good to know. I'm going to pop out and go to England for a while. I have played Spore. I played it a long time ago. I really enjoy the early game dynamics. I think that the early game dynamics are really fun. Once you get into like the weird like RTS, like, or not RTS. Yes, RTS. Once you get into the weird RTS dynamic later in the game, I just wasn't enjoying it as much. But the early game dynamics were pretty cool. The early game dynamics were cool. There's actually a board game that is not terribly dissimilar in terms of like the way that you handle building your species. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but it's this really cool board game where you basically have various attributes that you can apply to your different species, and you can use those cards to either increase the total quantity of your species that you have, or you can use those cards to give traits to the species. And you can combine traits in interesting ways, and you can basically create carnivores, and like the whole thing it's got an interesting dynamic to it. But yeah, I played a little bit of Spore, but I didn't really ever play much of it. Spore really had an uphill battle to climb because it was like one of the first really major like backlashes against DRM. Like the Spore had some really, really like egregious DRM that people just, it really turned people off from buying it. And as a niche sort of game, it's not like it's Call of Duty or something like that. They simply could not afford to have the hardcore gamer audience turned off by it. The way that like a FPS or something like that these days would be able to afford it. And so their early game sales just were atrociously bad. Let's see. But I got it eventually after they had like changed some of their policies, and it was a fine game, but I got distracted at some point and wandered off, and I never felt the need to go back to it because I feel like the dynamics of the game were not they weren't consistent enough really because it was basically like 5 or 6 different mini games, and I kind of just wanted to stay with the one. So this is interesting. So in a few years we'll have the War of the Roses, assuming nothing changes. So how does this all work? Holy shit. So you get the subjugation casus belli for Scotland from this. Would subjugation give you... So the force union casus belli is very strong. So no matter when you decide to do it, you actually can always just go after France to get that personal union over France. You don't have to do it at the very beginning of the game. which is pretty impressive actually. So you can use the subjugation casus belli up here on Scotland, which you get pretty early. So let's see, what else do you have here? So if you conquer Scotland, you get 150 admin power, and you get a permanent claim on all the Norwegian provinces, which is useful but not that crazy. Hey, Mr. Boss, welcome in. Let's see. This isn't a tech tree exactly. This is like a mission tree. So, yeah. Yeah, technically this mic is a directional mic. I'm not sure if I have the directional stuff on it at the moment. But the noise in the background would actually be coming from the same direction I am. Let's see, monopolize the channel. I need control over these two. This gives me a permanent claim over here. I did not realize how OP England was. I've never actually played as England, so holy crap. So you get 100 Diplo power just for finding England. So you just get some Navy tradition. So once you get access to Australia, so it looks like this is once you've already gotten the Australian colonies. Indonesia or Moluccan Charter. You get a claim on Kutai and Brunei. Interesting. So if I feel like as England, it actually makes a lot of sense to how strong is France right now? My guess is pretty dang strong. They're not that much stronger than I am right now. Let's see what happens. Like, I don't know how hard it is to actually win this initial war. So let's just pop everybody over to the board. It's off of Ulster, that seems. So they sent me as a rival. Austria's friendly. Offer an alliance to Austria. Scotland province. Oh, I guess I should probably set this a little faster. So basically, next year, at some point, is when the surrender of Maine event is going to fire. So I have the option to either surrender or not. Alliance with who's breaking? No, personal union. Never mind. Okay, that's fine. We would do Queen Consort. Oh, I didn't actually set France's rival. Oh, whoops, I didn't actually give anybody seats in Parliament. That's fine. Let's see. We can set the Ottomans. We can set Scotland as a rival. That's always useful. Excuse me. And who else? Let's set Denmark as a rival. They've already set me as a rival, and they're a legitimate rival for me. Let's see. Combat bonus on the coast. Interesting. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's start a debate. Let's see what else. Anything useful here? Let's do this. There we go. And we can give some seats in Parliament to random places. Let's just throw these out now. It improves the effectiveness of the territories, so we might as well. Alright. And you pop over here. So the question is, if we decide to attack France right now, then what actually happens? Well, it depends. So basically, it's worth it to just give up Maine if and only if we'll be able to, like, use that to, like, go after someone else, right? I don't know. Allying with Castile is not a good long-term strategy if you're planning on taking a bunch of Castilian territory, but whatever. Let's see. I guess I could start my relations with you. Yeah, let's pop this up now. So, Scotland is attacking Ulster, which is kind of interesting. And I just want to see what this... Let's see. What happens? Surrender of Maine. Here we go. Okay. Okay. We will not surrender an inch of territory to the French. So we have the restoration of Union casus belli against them. We have the 100 Years' War. I'm going to go ahead and do this. We are currently at war with them. And it's just us versus them for now. But I think they are probably going to bring about more friends. Okay, so it's me solo versus that. That's fun and exciting. So this is a bad war to get into. I wonder if this is actually feasible. Do people actually do this? Like, this does not seem like people could still do this today. Right? Like, there's just too much power being brought to bear against you. Because you're fighting France and all of its allies. Very interesting. I mean, I guess you might be able to fight them to a stalemate. Yeah. Let's see. I feel like just about every point in history has been pretty dramatic. Oh, the French are getting very quick ticks over here. Ah, filthy heretics. Why are they getting such... Oh, he's a siege specialist. Well, that'll do it. Let's get over here. So we just lost that siege. It's super interesting. bad. These guys have already just raced over here. That's so many enemies. It's glorious. So I guess the one advantage that you have, if you're going to try to do something like this, is you have the advantage that you do have the ability to just chill over here. You have the more powerful navy, so you don't need to move people across the channel all at once. And you can potentially bait out their army. And if you bait out their army successfully, then you can get them to do stuff that is very bad for them. So if I could take control over their capital... And it looks like this is a 14,000 troop situation here. It's going to crush me because they have an actual leader. Yeah, I don't think that doing like a rush like this is actually going to work, which I guess is why they give you this this thing here. So interesting. So I have to be at war with France and take control of their capital. So if I were to get an alliance with Liege, does that meet that criteria? Some of this stuff is really weird, the way that it like handles that kind of stuff. So, but that's pretty interesting. So we just won the Siege of Paris, and that allows us to complete this mission objective. My mouse off? No. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, the mouse is showing up in the wrong location. So my mouse is currently over Namur, and it's showing up on the screen, on you guys' screen over somewhere else completely. That's an interesting bug. Okay. So I think I'm actually going to end things here for now because my wife woke up and I'm going to be doing stuff with her. I primarily was looking to see like what kind of stuff you want to take in the early game for these different nations. It looks like England is going to have a really strong start. Like they start out with control over huge swaths of territory that you're going to need to take eventually. And they start out with the ability to expand in multiple directions that they need to expand. So, like, if you're looking for a good start, because you don't start out in a losing war with France anymore, like, this is a losing war, obviously. I'm getting my butt kicked. But you can just surrender Maine to them, which you don't really want anyway, because Maine isn't even part of the English Channel node. And then you never have to really fight France again. Because you can take this territory from Burgundy, which is admittedly going to be a lot harder, because look at all those friggin' junior partners, right? So there is some difficulty in going after Burgundy directly, probably. But you control huge swaths of French territory. So if you rival up Castile early on in the game and get... Who do you want as allies? Do you even want allies? I don't know. I don't know if you even want allies. But anyway, should be interesting to try out England at some point. But one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to come up with like more generic openings for a region where it's like, okay, well, if you're in this region, here's what your goal is by the year 1500. Here's what your goal is by the year like 1600. If you're trying for like a world conquest and things like that, before you get to the age of absolutism, it's nice to have sort of goals in terms of what trade nodes should you be controlling, what territories should you have, because at a certain point, like after the year 1500 or so, there's not really any difference between playing as Byzantium and playing as the Ottomans, because they're basically the same country, right? By the time you get to the year 1500, you've completely conquered the Ottomans, and you're just in this area. You're this giant swath here. Excuse me. And at that point, the question becomes, like, how do you continue from there? So, anyway, I'm looking forward to tinkering with this for some more, but that's going to be it for today. So, thank you everyone for watching. It has been a pleasure streaming for you today. I hope to be doing a little bit more streaming in the future than I have been doing. I've been really inactive, but I've been working on getting this this book written, and I've been making some pretty sizable progress on that. So that's good. So, later, folks.